Sunday greetings, Fordham folks. We are now at the end of week 5, mostly through our session together. And this week you all were asked to conduct a thought experiment on naming God as Mother, and also to consider the more maternal aspects of God in theological perspective. So we continue to read the work of D.W. Winicott, who as a pediatric psychiatrist really underscored the importance of the mother in human development and how crucial she was to the health, thriving, and of course survival of the infant. And he says that we've never really fully reckoned with a radical dependence that all of us have on our mothers. So in her work, Dr. Cataldo also endorses the centrality of that female figure of, in fact, what mother has done to bring us to life. And she hypothesizes that that's part of the challenge in using mother language in liturgy and theology, because there is something about that total dependence that is discomforting to us, right? She also, at the same time, critiques Freud's nothing but understanding of religion, that religion is nothing but the longing for a strong father. And she understandably sees this as a sort of phallocentric philosophy, and it's got a fascination with the relationship of sons to fathers. You know, that's also a relationship that gets privileged in Trinitarian formulations in Christianity and also in Freud's understanding of the primal horde. But the nothing but is a little reductive in that it leaves out the female experience almost entirely. And so where then do we locate women and girls? Where do we locate the relationship that daughter has to mother or son has to mother? We also this week read Erikson, who is monumental really in psychoanalysis, from adopting a lifespan perspective. So it's not just what happens in infancy or early childhood or before adolescence that matters to Erikson. It's what happens over the course of our life cycle. And Erikson lifts up the facts that numerous relationships matter in our lives, and some matter more at different stages. For instance, adolescents need peer relationships. Adults count very much on their intimate relationships with their partners. And elders rely very much on their society and their social context for a sense of meaning and coherence. One of the things that I think Erikson especially offers those of us who do pastoral work is he sees all of these stages, all of these phases in our lives as not only opportunities for things to perhaps go awry, but things to really happen right. And when things happen right, what happens is that we acquire certain strengths and virtues and competencies. So chart 2, which I posted to Blackboard here, is basically a schedule of virtues. And Erikson really challenged this notion that psychoanalysis had to rely on a psychosexual understanding. And he suggested that maybe a psychosocial emphasis was perhaps more fitting, given that humans are such relational creatures, and that we do exist in our families, in our groups, in our societies, and that these societies, of course, include our faith communities. And if you look at his psychosocial crises, you can really hear them communicating the spiritual dimension of human development. So these issues around trust or mistrust, around initiative or guilt, around intimacy or isolation, around generativity or stagnation, around integrity or despair. These have real religious, spiritual import, and the virtues that can emerge from a successful resolution of these are tremendously important in spiritual maturity. So things like wisdom, care, love, hope, fidelity. All of these things really matter. And like Jung, Erikson was very consciously cross-cultural. He had an interreligious perspective that looked at constants in human development. And so he understands that we have different religious languages for articulating what he calls the numinous. But the aim of the numinous is the same, whatever language we use to describe it, whether it's Mother God or Father God. And on page 45 in The Life Cycle Completed, Erikson writes, "The numinous assures us ever again of separateness transcended, and yet also of distinctiveness confirmed, and thus of the very basis of a sense of I. Religion and art are the institutions with the strongest traditional claim on the cultivation of numinosity, as can be discerned in the details of rituals by which the numinous is shared with a congregation of other I's, now all sharing one all-embracing I am." And so Erikson understands what intensely relational beings we are. And so if we are wounded in relationship, we also have the capacity to be healed in relationship. One of the things that Erikson posited is that if developmental tasks are not resolved successfully, or they don't result in virtues, they can belatedly be completed, or virtues can be belatedly acquired. And there is repairing relationships beyond our earliest ones, beyond those that we had with our parents. So where there may not have been good enough parenting, there may be good enough connecting in other domains. And that people in some ways can be reparented or can reparent themselves in ways that are reparative, not only for them, but for those around them. So a question that emerged from the discussion boards was if, instead of thinking about Mother God or Father God or Motherly Father, if there weren't maybe some impetus to move beyond parental images, solely parental images, for God. And some of you suggested that if you exchange he for she, you still have a pronoun problem. The only thing you've changed is the pronoun. Now, obviously, all of us are here because we have a father and we have a mother who came together and gave us our existence, right, in this human plane. And so both the male and female principle are necessary for full human life, for the fullest flourishing. And Erikson understands this. He says we need men and women alike to develop fully so that they can raise the generations to come, each to do better than the last. And so we need to move beyond our either or thinking about male or female and step into maybe a more expansive space. I want you to think about that kind of expansiveness next week, week 6, when we talk about getting beyond two-ness and allowing the possibility of the third. So I will see you then next week. Until then, take care.